Ladies and gentlemen, I often in my reviews of Korean films or films from the Asian market in general talk about a lot of foibles in filmmaking from the Orient that just seem to plague almost every production. Some of them are quite problematic. That said, in tonight's lesson plan, we have a first time director who commits all of those foibles, but still puts out a better action movie than a lot of his American counterparts. As Cinematic Class is about to begin. Your professor. Is it? Greetings, salutations, and other sundry affair. I am your cinematic professor. I'm purveyor of truth in movies. And tonight's lesson plan is a new action thriller from South Korea called The Wild. The first time director I mentioned, and here I go butchering up names again, Kim Bong Han. This is his first time directing. And, I think he still has put together a very decent film here. A lot of times the Asian market creates thrillers or mysteries that have a tendency to be exceptionally complex. Now, there are reasons for that, and I'll get to some of them later in the review. But what happens a lot of times is the Americans see that it's a good story, they take that story, they adapt it, and make it an American version of it. The Departed comes to mind immediately. If you watch both the Oriental version and the American version, yeah, they're the same story, but you could see where American audiences would gravitate more toward the American interpretation of that movie. Although I got to tell you personally, I like the other one a little bit better. I think it fits better. Writer Kim Joo-man is also involved in this. The director can do so much, but he's got to have a decent script to go with there. And this script is indicative of a lot of the Korean thrillers in that good old Kim has made this thing too complicated. He really has. And it hurts with the editing at the end. Now, the writer and the director have to work together to make this thing come out. So I believe these two have done that. It's an interesting story. It's a good story. Considering this is the first time for Kim to direct, I have a feeling his future endeavors will smooth out, and then his films will really generate a lot of excitement, I think. This movie is like The Departed in that if an American company came and threw American stars behind it, I think it's a good enough story that it would sell. Okay, we have a lot of names here that I can butcher and telling you the story on how this works. The main star is Park Sun Moon. He plays Woo Chin, and Woo is an ex-boxer. Woo was great friends with Doshi, who is played by Ode Hwan, and Doshi is a gangster, a big gangster, but they're buddies. And good old Wu takes a fall for him and goes to prison for an 8-year sentence, and takes the rap for him so his buddy can continue to grow his criminal empire. Well, now Wu is released. He comes out, and obviously Dushing says, you're welcome back into the family. You can work at any of our establishments, what have you. Wu doesn't want any part of this. He wants to kind of lead the straight life now. He's had enough of the rough and tumble stuff. He spent the last 8 years in prison, and he just wants to come home and mellow out. He runs into some problems though, chief of which is Choi. Choi is played by Seo Ji Hai, and this is her first starring role. She plays a prostitute. Choi is a prostitute. She gets tied up into Wu's life, and into that also comes two rather nefarious characters. Um, One is Odesu. He is Gaksu, and he is a really big drug cartel leader. Has a boat and does a lot of this importing of illegal drugs. And Ju Seok Tae plays Detective Joe. Now, you would think Detective Joe would be maybe an antagonist or protagonist. No, he's a very crooked cop, and he's in with all of the gangsters, taking trim off the top and everything, and so he's probably one of the meaner bad guys in the whole story. Poor Wu gets stuck in a relationship mess, quagmire, if you will, between all these nefarious characters, and things just aren't going to go with him leading that quiet lifestyle.
길이 하나 있긴 한데
그 길이 뭔데?
좁고 위험해. 대신 얻는 건 많고. 각순에 치려면은 진짜 제대로 쳐야 돼.
개새끼는 말이야 주인을 아예 버려. 기간데 주인 새끼가 개를 버리는 법이디.
내나 찌기고 싶지? 그러면 우리 최명주 씨 나랑 일하나 하셔야겠는데.
하수는 눈앞에 패만 보고 고수는 만들어서 먹는 법이야. 맛있게. 조정건이는 돈 갖고 나는 약 챙기고 너는 여자 데리고 떠나.
만약 실수로 일이 틀어지면 어떻게 되는 거니? 누가 나를 위해서 최선을 다해줄까? 넌 딱 하나밖에 없잖아.
어떤 사람 살리려면 다른 사람 죽일 각오를 해야지.
우리 어디서부터 잘못된 거냐?
Okay, so that gives you a pretty good idea of what's going on. I think now we should probably peel back the veils of time and head back to the early Cretaceous period for the nation's first and only prehistoric film critic, Rex Real.
Korean action films always tend toward blades and knives for their fighting sequences. This is a most noble first-time effort, but this type of story needs more sex and nudity, and less timeline shifts, so it would be less confusing to the viewer. Plus, smoother editing would definitely help. Worth a view, but you'll struggle through the conclusion.
So I'll tell you what, Rex is kind of spot on this. He's picked out a lot of the main things. Like most movies today, and especially movies coming from the Asian market, this one is too long. Okay, you could probably trim a decent 35 minutes off of this and still have a solid and intricate story. It's too complicated. Even with the time they're giving it, over 2 hours, it's too complicated, and part of that is due to the editing. There's a lot of editing in this one, folks, where it's just choppy. It's not smooth. There's not like a seamless edit, which is one of the things you always try to go for. It's very choppy and staccato, if you want a musical term for it. And as such, watching a movie like that is always nerve wracking. And something that is a tendency in Asian cinema, this movie is really too tragic. Okay. Now, I'm not saying every movie has to have a great ending, but the Koreans have a tendency to, even though they're presenting a downer ending, if you will, they hit you over the head with it. They don't like easily let you into, hey, this is not going to end well. They just kaboom, and there it is. So the ending's a bit rough. I gotta tell you. And you're sitting there going, why not this? Why that? You know, that type of thing. So perhaps that's a good thing. It gets you talking about the movie. In any event, I like this as a first directorial debut, if you will, for Kim Bong-hun. I think he shows some potential, and if he fine tunes, sands out the rough spots on the edges, I think his filmmaking will be something to look forward to. This one's a little bit fun. You'll see where some of the things could be corrected right away, and it especially happens toward the end of the movie. So Act 3 is the one that really needed some polishing. But that aside, it's still a fun movie to watch. And I'd like to remind you that don't forget to click that subscribe button, especially if you want to see more of these fantastical reviews and be on the bleeding edge of what's going on in movie making today. And don't forget the official Rex Reel store. It is at Redbubble. Here's a URL for you. You can check that on out. And our main event today are t-shirts. There's a veritable plethora of styles and colors. Go on the site, help yourself out. And summertime's coming, kid. You want to put that t-shirt on and wear the official Rex Reel logo. It's going to be all the craze. So now that you have learned what you have learned, here in is